Today, I'm going to be taking a look back at my original Nintendo. The very first console I ever attempted to do a hardware mod on. And as you can see, I gave it a gold paint job on the outside, and on the inside, I did the lockout chip mod. If you can even call it a mod. I clipped the pin on the lockout chip, that way it would be able to run games from any region. And in this video I'm going to take a look back at the job I did, because it's been so long I can't even remember. And from the looks of things, the paint did not start off well. At least I covered the logos and painted around those. But you can tell I didn't clear coat anything, and it has not worn well. One of the feet fell off, and I'm pretty sure I actually used that on a different project, and I can't even remember what that was. You can also see where my razor blade slipped and I cut the plastic whenever I was trying to mask off those emblems, and I even took off the panel and painted underneath it. Good. So let's get this thing apart and see how I actually put it back together back in the day. I'd love to know if I did it right or just threw it back together. It really has been at least 10 years since I made this. And it was the first console I actually took apart and attempted to modify the hardware instead of just software modding. At this point I'm pretty sure I had modded soft modded a Wii with letter bomb and stuff like that, but I had never done a hardware mod. So let's get all these screws out and take a look at what I actually did. I remember what I did. Let's take a look at how I actually did it. So there are screws in the corner and in the center. Nope. I left that one out. Okay, I've got one over here. Maybe a little bit tight. That's funny, we're 3 screws in and I'm already missing one. Let's get that cover off. Now, corner. There we go. Do I have one here? No. Outside corner. God, did you hear that crack? I don't think I should have torqued these down quite that hard. I think that's why the top had that little bow in it. I thought that was just from heat or getting dropped or something like that, but I think I have my screws on too tight. I don't remember if I have to take this off first, but we're going to anyway. Those weren't bad. At least I took this part off whenever I did the paint job and didn't tape it. That came out looking pretty good, as well as these labels. Those look pretty good too. I think I tried to peel this one off and then gave up and taped it and cut the tape off. It looks okay. You can see some spots, like that line right there, where the razor slipped and I scratched the actual plastic. Okay. Let's come up and off. Tricky thing here is all of my screws are still in the bottom, so I'm gonna have to flip it. One, 2, 3. 4. And there we have it. The lid's off. So I took it all the way apart to paint it. That's nice. I couldn't remember if I did that or not. Okay. Let's get these shields off and really start exposing it. I'm gonna start by grabbing these across the edge of this. shield or plate. Pop those off. We need to work our way further down because the only thing I did to this was clip the lockout chip. And I just want to take a look at how nasty that looks. Because it's been so long, I don't remember any of it. And I know for a fact I didn't change the 72 pin connector. And it definitely needs it replaced because let's say you clean a cartridge the right way, little IPA, clean it off real gently, get the contacts nice and shiny. If you put them in this NES, that cartridge in this NES, and pull it out and clean it again, it'll turn the heads of the cotton swabs black. Over and over and over. So you can put perfectly clean games in here and still get either the green screen or just glitch graphics. And I knew that when I did this mod. That's the thing, I knew that. I thought that this was going to help me with that, and it was going to make games run, and I wasn't going to have to worry about the connector on the inside of the NES being dirty. Wow, was that wrong, and goofy. So I should have this top plate free. I'm stuck to something over here. Right there. So there's our plate. Looks like something scratched the fire out of it over there. Not sure if that was me or not. I don't know what that would be from if it wasn't from the factory. Now I'm shocked to see how clean this assembly looks from the outside like this. It looks so clean. The point at where it's dirty just must be deep back inside there, because the outsides are so shiny. But yeah, every cartridge black. Some kind of just random old dirt and grease mixed together, packed up in there. So let's get a little bit further in and take a look at the pin that I actually clipped. And I believe to do that, I'm going to have to get this assembly out of the way. And I'm going to start off by taking out its surrounding screws. Thank goodness I didn't over tighten any of those. These are barely there. It's the opposite of the outside of the case. Seems to be uniform screws throughout the entire thing so far, other than the two that came out of the controller port cover. So that's nice for reassembly. You don't have to pay attention to anything so far. We just have screws going around each side. There's 4 in the rear and then 2 in the front. I don't remember exactly how this comes off, so I'm just going to kind of go for it. I don't feel like I have anything to lose because I really desperately need to rejuvenate this and do this all again. This was loose, but still sat all the way down. Interesting. We've got something going on there. One more. Also, just barely there at all. Barely at all. Wonder if that has something to do with my green screen issue. A little more than the fact that it's dirty as well. This is the back side of the connector. I always thought it was wild that they used solid metal strips right there instead of just running wire and soldering it. Capacitor looks like it's in pretty good shape. It's not bubbling up or anything, not leaking, at least from the top. Let's get this out of the way. Right here. There's finally a different screw. Oh, that one's... Need to invest in the old magnetic screwdriver. Okay, Does she want to lift yet? She does. Let's get that screw out before we move it. Okay, now, as you can see, all you have to do now is remove these connectors, and we'll be free. Here is our board. Our connector is almost, there we go. Our assembly is free from around it. So if your springs ever break, or this mechanism stops moving up and down, you can replace that individually if the system is still reading cartridges. Let's put that to the side. Everything still looks okay so far. I didn't put anything back in a crazy way, except for that one random screw. Let's take a look at the bottom of this board. She is in good shape for being used regularly its whole life. Here's an interesting view of that connection right there. How it goes up from the underside of the board, up and over into the cartridge reader. We need to go ahead and remove these shields, then we can get a closer look. Now these shields will just lift off at this point. It's just pressure fit right there around that connection for the expansion port. So we can lift that right off. And now we can finally see the actual board. NTSC. And there's familiar names in here as well. Hyundai chips. Toshiba. Texas Instruments. Now these caps look really good too. I don't see anything going on there. And across here. Just solid build quality. They figured out how to make it cheap, but still last. That's why you gotta love Nintendo. So now that we're finally here, let's take a look at this mod. The mod was the Nintendo Lockout chip mod. And it's hardly a mod at all. You clip one pin off of one chip. Now what you're doing is you're bypassing the anti-piracy on the Nintendo cartridges. Normally, the Nintendo carts have a chip inside of them that communicate with a chip on this board. And if that communication isn't established, the game doesn't run. And all you need to do to bypass this is just clip this pin. So let's take a look at that. The bypass is just clipping that pin. And I did not do a good job at all. I can see I've marked the board. I scored the top of it. I completely removed material rather than just cutting it, so you'd have to solder in a new joint right there if you ever wanted this to work correctly again. So I beat it up, but it worked, and it still works today. But that is not how you should go about doing this. I guess you can though. If you're compelled for some reason to bypass that chip enough and you just want to take a pair of pliers to it, that's what I did and it lasted. You just have to really be careful not to affect anything around it, and don't mark the top of the motherboard like I did like that. I want to take another look at the paint job of this thing one more time before I put it back together. So I must have taped it right here because we don't have any overspray. Oh, yeah we do. Just a little bit. See it there? Just barely shot in. I must have taped it but not sealed it all the way. There's even cobweb in here, it's been so long. So if you ever wondered what the top side of a NES looks like while it's off, There you go. At least I did a good job on that inside section and taped it off. What I did not do was take the time or spend the effort to keep that logo safe. So now it's just a strange embossed effect where the paint didn't stick the same to the emblem as it did the plastic. And here's that dimple I was talking about from putting it back together too tight. Gotta get the shadow to cast on it, just there you go. Right there. So that's why you don't want to over tighten these. I did it to every corner. Just a little overspray from the inside, from the middle. If you ever wondered what the power buttons look like from the inside in that assembly and light, there you go. And you can easily replace those too if something happens to them. The whole thing is extremely easy to take apart and work on. Here's the back side of the controller connectors. So we're just going to begin here by putting the shields back together, sandwiching everything back together, and reassembling. And reflecting on an old job from the past. I'm both surprised at how well I did and surprised at how bad I did at both the clip and the paint job at the exact same time. I really should go back, take this thing down to its plastic, do it the right way, and at least clear it this time. I just can't believe I never cleared it. That's the reason why the paint wore so terribly in the first place, is that's just raw gold spray paint. Through several moves, several different houses. And it just shows every single time it got touched. Even just touching it leaves a film across it that's so strange. There we go. And I don't even remember what the reason was that I wanted to clip that lockout chip so bad. At that time, I didn't have any imported games or like combination cards or anything like that that I could picture would require clipping that. Yeah, I'm not sure what ended up happening there with those. Let's get him back in there. Maybe it was just younger me wanting to have done one hardware mod, and this is literally the easiest hardware mod you could ever imagine. That's gotta be it. I painted it, I wanted one easy mod. Maybe I thought it would assist the reading of cartridges too. You never really know. Let's get the bottom side. Let's get our connectors back in. Hello? There we go. From whence you came, ye shall remain. If you can finish that, I will pin your comment. Let's get all this back in here. Clip, clip, clip. Make sure our wires are routed the same way they were before. And you know, it's interesting how much I love the original Nintendo, having been a person that didn't grow up with it. I grew up with the Game Boy and the Super Nintendo. My first console ever was the original Super Nintendo. And my first handheld was the original Game Boy. I got the Game Boy first as a hand-me-down from my brother, and I think that was when the Game Boy Color came out. And I got the Super Nintendo a few years after the PlayStation came out, because he worked over a summer and got the first PlayStation in probably 97 or 98 and gave me his Super Nintendo. It wasn't until a few years later, when I got a Game Boy Advance, that I really started to fall in love with the original Nintendo. because of the NES Classic series and WarioWare Twisted. At the time that I was playing those games when they came out for the Game Boy Advance was the same time I started to finally meet people that had these. Met some nice older people I used to hang out with, kind of like a second set of grandparents. They had one of these, and I would go over there and hang out and clean the cartridges and play it. And the interest was always coming from the Game Boy Advance. So for a couple of years there, I was playing games that were based on a system I had never seen and wasn't able to play. So it's kind of interesting. I'm 30 years old, and one of the first games I ever played was a collection and remaster of older games. Super Mario All-Stars. Going back and playing the original trilogy of Mario games was really interesting. The graphics being different were one thing, but the music being that drastically different is what hit me the hardest back then. It had its own cool sound to it that wasn't anything else. It was close to other things, but it wasn't really anything else. As we get this bad boy reconnected, one thing I want to show you here is how I connect it. I use an original Nintendo power brick, and it's the original one, as far as I know, to this console, or at least it's how long I've had it. But I don't use the RF out on the back. I use the RCA on the side. But something that I hate about the original Nintendo is it only has mono audio. So what I do to get not stereo audio, but at least audio through both sides, is I use these old Radio Shack gold tip connectors. This one is a splitter that's splitting that mono audio to 2 RCA jacks, so I can get even audio on both speakers of whatever I connect the NES to, and then just using the normal video on the other side. I don't use an upscaler or anything like that because my TV seems to be upscaling better than any of the little budget ones I've ever bought, so I just don't mess with that kind of thing. I just set it on 4.3 and let it go. Do any of you have old modded consoles? Did you paint any consoles back in the day or try to do the hardware lockout chip clip? Or any other hardware mods? Do you still have an original Nintendo, or do you all just emulate everything? I don't really use the original Nintendo that much unless it's just strictly for nostalgia. Normally I'll pick up the Switch there and use the games that are on the online service, and if I need a scratch itch that's not there, I'll emulate it, either on a handheld or on my computer or phone. Because nowadays the convenience is just unbeatable. But it is nice to go back and look at those original consoles, and now through the lens of the adult version of myself, looking at what teenage me thought was really cool. Let me know if you think I should go back and take that thing back down to plastic and redo it the right way. And if you stuck around this long, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.